The legendary Outer Banks, a narrow chain of sandbars and islands shielding the North Carolina coastline from the full force of the Atlantic Ocean, reach more than 175 miles from Norfolk, Virginia, south to Cape Lookout. Far from home, on their own in a way they had never been, the brothers seemed to sense, as they never had, the adventure of life. Orville would later say that even with all the adversities they had to face, it was the happiest time they had ever known. Orville reached Elizabeth City on September 26. He found Wilbur had the soaring machine nearly ready. With everything in place, it consisted of 2 fixed wings, one above the other, each measuring 5 by 17 feet. In addition, it had warping controls and a movable forward rudder. They knew exactly the importance of what they had accomplished. They knew they had solved the problem of flight and more. They had acquired the knowledge and the skill to fly. They could soar, they could float, they could dive and rise, circle and glide and land, all with assurance. Altogether, in 2 months on the Outer Banks, they had made nearly 1,000 glides and resolved the last major control problem. Now they had only to build a motor. Only 5 men showed up the morning of Thursday the 17th. Orville now positioned himself on his stomach at the controls, as Wilbur had, while Wilbur stood to the right at the tip of the lower wing, ready to help keep the machine in balance as it started down the track. As they would later emphasize, neither had had any previous acquaintance with the conduct of the machine and its controlling mechanisms. At exactly 10:35, Orville slipped the rope restraining the flyer, and it headed forward. The course of the flight, in Orville's words, was extremely erratic. The flyer rose, dipped down, rose again, bounced and dipped again like a bucking bronco when one wing struck the sand. The distance flown had been 120 feet, less than half the length of a football field. The total time airborne was approximately 12 seconds. It was an uncertain, wavy, creeping sort of a flight at best, but it was a real flight at last. Success it most certainly was, and more. What had transpired that day in 1903, in the stiff winds and cold of the Outer Banks, in less than 2 hours' time, was one of the turning points in history, the beginning of change for the world, far greater than any of those present could possibly have imagined. With their homemade machine, Wilbur and Orville Wright had shown without a doubt that man could fly. And if the world did not yet know it, they did.